Aliens vs Predator released in February 2010 for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 video game consoles as well as gaming PCs, and developed by English game developer Rebellion and published by SEGA. At the time of release, I remember the general consensus of the game being kinda mixed at the time, but a bit more positive among long-time fans of the franchise such as myself. But how does it hold up over a decade later? I actually did buy this game at release back in the day, and I remember enjoying it, but not really thinking it was anything that special. But I recently dipped back into it when I did my playthrough for this YouTube channel, and I actually thought, for what it was actually pretty damn good. I've never really been that big on first person shooters per se as a genre, and I've never been interested in the likes of Call of Duty or Battlefield where that's the main focus. I'm more into stuff like Resistance, Singularity and FarCry with a cool story, world and atmosphere, so I was more interested in the game because it was Alien vs Predator rather than the type of game it was. Starting off with the graphics, it was a pretty average looking game for its time, not bad but not impressive either. It was a middle of the road kind of game in the graphics department. And nowadays, it definitely does look like a game from 2010, but not really in a bad way. It's certainly still acceptable, and it doesn't take away from the enjoyment. I did have a little bit of trouble with enemies seeming to blend in with the background a bit, and it is kinda dark with a mostly dull, muddy colour palette consisting of grey and earth tones, which was a pretty common thing around this time, so you might want to crank up the brightness and contrast a bit on your TV when you play it. Gameplay is mostly good, with differences across each campaign making each one feel unique, but there is still a sense of uniformity making them still feel like they all belong, and there are a decent variety of enemy types, typically consisting of marines, combat androids, facehuggers and alien drones as regular enemies, and then things like praetorians and predators serving as mini-bosses and bosses, and even an alien queen. The controls and combat are fun to play after getting adjusted. I found all three campaigns enjoyable to play in their own different ways. Aiming and shooting feel good, and as a marine, whenever you shoot a xenomorph, there's this kinda satisfying crunch you get when you kill one, if that makes sense. And jumping and climbing around as the alien and predator are always great fun. You can also block attacks and follow up with a counter, but then a heavy attack takes longer, but breaks an enemy's block, giving melee attacks a rock paper scissors element, which makes things interesting as well. There are also these finishers you can do, either from stealth or after stunning an enemy, which are pretty fucking awesome. However, you do need to be careful as you're completely exposed while performing them, and there were a few times I unwisely did it while there were still enemies nearby who'll kill you before the animation ends. The game's storyline is fine, but nothing to write home about. However, it definitely does feel like AVP, with the developers nailing the atmosphere, sound and visuals. Stuff like the alien screeches, predator targeting laser and the marine's weapon sounds are all very authentic to the AVP universe. And also, the same actor who played Bishop from the Alien films voices Wayland, who serves as the game's primary antagonist. Voice acting on the whole is as you'd expect from a game like this, but I think they could have maybe recorded just a few more lines for the NPC Marines, as I don't even know how many times I heard someone say the line, "Don't relax just yet, Marines."
Don't relax just yet. Don't relax just yet, Marines.
All campaigns begin with the same cutscene, with Wayland opening a Predator pyramid on planet BG-386, which sets in motion the events of the story, and we see all three perspectives of the main playable characters from roughly the same place in time. And at the start of the human campaign, there's this awesome shot where you're inside a dropship and then you see a massive Predator ship decloak and fire at a Sulaco style ship, which is something that would be amazing in an AVP movie. The main gimmick of the game, other than featuring xenomorphs and predators, has to be its 3 different campaigns, where you play as 3 distinct character types, an alien, a predator and a colonial marine, with them all taking place around the same time and intertwining with each other, which I thought was cool. And while they all do mostly share a lot of the same levels, they're experienced through a different perspective each time you play with a different character, with you taking, say, one route as the Marine, but a different one with the Xenomorph, and then there may be some areas inaccessible as the Marine, as you're mostly limited to the ground level, but as the Predator and Alien, there is a lot more verticality, as you're able to jump up or scale surfaces as those two, but then as the Marine, you can hack doors and enter interior areas otherwise off limits. In the Marine campaign, you play as the Rookie, a new member of the team who gets separated from his fellow soldiers, then try to meet up with them and save others as you try to find a way off of the planet. I'd say overall, this campaign was the one I'd say felt like it had more to it than the others, and it was the most story driven of the 3 and the longest. Its main focus is on gunplay and ranged combat. You get a variety of weapons which have a secondary fire, which is something I like when games do that. You get a handgun which does low damage but has infinite ammo, with its secondary fire being a 3-shot burst, a pulse rifle which has a high rate of fire and an underslung grenade launcher, a shotgun which is very powerful and fires both barrels as its secondary fire, a flamethrower, a scoped rifle which is good for sniping with, and a smart gun which automatically targets enemies. You get 3 weapon slots which you have to pick up and drop different weapons as you go. In my opinion, I'd have preferred a weapon wheel to this, so you can use whatever weapon you want whenever you want. In the Alien campaign, you play as Specimen 6, a xenomorph bred in captivity in a Weyland-Yutani lab, with the game starting with you breaking out and setting your fellow xenomorphs free, then in later levels setting out to kill and destroy anything or anyone who could pose a threat to you. I'd say gameplay wise, this was the character I found the most fun to play as, with you being able to scale pretty much any surface. You can walk on walls, ceilings, hide in vents, and there are a few cool environmental puzzles and hazards to navigate as well, such as one section where you have to jump from vent to vent to avoid being sucked up into a ceiling fan and chopped into pieces. A common complaint I've always heard is how a lot of people seem to struggle with the controls and how the camera moves around while traversing as the alien, with some saying they even start to feel motion sickness from it. But personally, I've never really had an issue. Yeah, they do take some getting used to, but about 15 minutes in, it all felt fine to me. The combat in this campaign focuses on melee and stealth. While you are very deadly, you can quickly become overwhelmed by the enemy's firepower if you find yourself exposed for too long. It pays to stick to the shadows and vents when you can. You have a quick attack by swiping with your claws and a slower heavy attack with your tail, but no ranged attacks, unlike the other 2 characters. I think giving you the ability to spit acid could have been a cool attack, but make it have to charge up so you don't overly rely on it. And in the Predator campaign, you play as Dark, a newly initiated elite predator looking for a group of youngbloods who goes missing, but he then sees a Pred-Alien and has to defeat that. This campaign was like the Alien and Marine campaigns combined, sharing elements of the 2 like ranged attacks, melee and stealth, and this character felt like the most powerful of the 3 to play as. I might even go as far as to say the Predator is maybe a little bit overpowered compared to the other 2, as where the Marine is good at range combat, having access to guns, but lacking in melee capability, and the Alien being powerful up close but vulnerable from a distance, the Predator basically combines all these strengths together, being good at both melee and ranged attacks, as well as being tough and stealthy too, and having almost none of the other's weaknesses. As the Predator, you can jump great heights and it has the most platforming sections. You also have 2 vision modes, the classic thermal vision, which is good for spotting humans, and alien vision, which is good for highlighting xenomorphs. You also have a stealth cloak and classic Predator weaponry like the wrist blades for melee, a plasma caster which locks onto an enemy and does more damage the more it's charged but also uses up your energy, mines which can be used to set traps, this was the weapon I always forget about, a smart disc which when thrown can be manually guided to attack multiple enemies once thrown before returning, and a combi stick which is thrown like a spear. This weapon will pretty much one-shot most enemies except bosses, and doesn't use energy but requires precision aiming. I did enjoy the traversal as the Predator, but I preferred the more open levels to some of the later ones like the lab and temple, which seem to get a little bit closed in, considering the Predator does do a lot of jumping around and doing stealthy stuff. So I did enjoy the game quite a lot when I recently played it again. Because of the variety between the different characters, it's almost like having 3 games in one. That said, the game is a short one, with the Marine story taking me about 3 hours, and then the others were even shorter, with the Predator campaign being less than 2 hours, and the Alien one being the shortest at an hour and a half, making the game only 6 hours long. The presentation is very good for the time of release, and still playable today if you're an AVP fan and you haven't tried it yet. There are a few flaws, but for a now 12-year-old game it still holds up pretty well. You can buy it dirt cheap second hand, or if you're on Xbox 360 and you want it now, I bought it from Xbox Live for like £3 off of there. It seemed like they were setting up a sequel to be set on the Xenomorph home planet, as it hints towards that, but we never got a sequel, which is a shame, as I do think it deserved one and it sold well, I believe. I guess because they had Colonial Marines coming out next, and then a few years after that we got Alien Isolation, so maybe the schedule was just a bit too full for SEGA to let Rebellion make a follow-up, and now they only seem interested in making online games. But hopefully we'll get something more like this type of game again one day. To put a score on it, I would give Aliens vs Predator 8 out of 10. Pretty fun and hasn't aged too badly despite some small flaws. Make sure to check out my playthrough of the game, which I'll have linked on the end screen. Make sure to like if you enjoyed the video and let me know what you thought about the game. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.